might have been Moshe, Moses. If this were the case, an obvious question would arise, because if we're presuming that based on, the similarity in the name and, of course, the positioning in North Africa and Egypt, if the name is at least part of the speculation, then we would have to, I think we have to ask ourselves, it would seem in the Bible, and a similar tradition with some Native Americans, which is that the, like giving names that mean things, like in the modern, like grace or chastity, like Adam means man, right? So Ha-Adam, you might translate that as mankind, right? But there'd be questions I'd have, because, if this was a transliteration of a name or a nickname, let's say his nickname was Moses, and having the name Thutmoses, maybe he was nicknamed Moses, or maybe it was shortened for another reason or reasons. But then why do we not have Moshesh or Moses in the Hebrew? Well, it's not the first time we see something like this in the scriptures, in the ancient world. Look at the Brit HaChadashah, the New Testament. Oh, hey, I'll get with you in 1 second. Because, instead of, Gehinnom, or the shortened Gehinnom, we see Gehenna. Instead of Yeshua, or even the longer Yehoshua, we see it shortened to Yeshu, seemingly, or Yezu in the Greek, presumably from Yeshu, because they didn't have a sh letter, a letter to make that phoneme, presumably. But here's where it gets a little bit interesting, though, because Moshe, Moses, means something like out from the water or something like that, and I believe there are other words in Hebrew that have similar meaning. In the Egyptian language, although they may have certain commonalities, the ancient Egyptian language or languages, like Thutmoses, I believe Thut was for Thoth, and then the second portion, I'm not sure what that comes from, and or what the meaning is, but presumably it doesn't mean from the water. I don't believe that's the case from what little I know on that. So I'd have a lot of questions. I'd like to investigate further. First of all, other Semitic languages like Arabic, Aramaic, Amharic, and Ge'ez, I'd like to see if they have phonemes, or sorry, not phonemes, cognates, or related terms that might share an ancestry with, the word Moshe and similar words in Hebrew. It wouldn't necessarily be the smoking gun, but it would definitely indicate the possibility that the word, might have actually meant something about the water prior to its use being associated with a Navi, or a Nevi. But another question would be, why shorten it to even if it was Moshesh, why shorten it in the Hebrew? Also, another thing to speculate is, I wonder if, since Sheen, I believe, can have the S or the Sh sound, if I'm not mistaken, in Hebrew, we could speculate that maybe it was originally pronounced Moset and then became shortened to Moshe. But it still doesn't answer why not the last letter, number one. Number two, if it has a literal meaning, then why would he have originally been named something in the Egyptian? Although we can speculate because he was raised by a Hebrew, so she might. I can speculate that they might have let the Hebrew name him, and maybe it was a clever naming intentionally. Maybe through the spirit, we could speculate. But at the end of the day, it's very interesting because there are so many questions surrounding, did Moshe, did that name and the words associated originally mean what they mean? if Thutmosis really was Moses. And so the Hebrew words, or was it based on a transliteration that eventually gained meaning later, which would be contrary to how traditionally the ancient Semites in that area seemed to do things, based on the account in the Tanakh, the accounts in the Tanakh, right? It would seem that people were named things with words like grace or chastity, or or flower, like modern names in English, we use literal words sometimes, or in like ancient, some Native Americans, like running bull or flying eagle, right? Like, this is not a new tradition. This is something people have been doing for thousands of years. But it does linguistically beg the question: did his name originally mean that if it was transliterated? Because a transliteration is just writing one name from, or something from one language into another alphabetical system, you know. And we see that in the Brit Hadashah, the New Testament. We see that in modern languages, where instead of writing Om with the symbol for Om from Sanskrit, we write AUM or OM. Um, and so it begs the question, if he was supposed to be named that for a meaning. And then, of course, if the name does mean that in Hebrew, if it had that meaning going back far enough, and if it was on top of that a transliteration of his Egyptian name, then we might even count that as a miracle, because you would wonder, what are the odds of that occurring. But there are a lot of questions. I'd like to delve into it deeper. One of the things I would like to look for is similar words in other Semitic languages like Arabic, Aramaic, Ge'ez, Amharic, other Semitic languages, maybe even ancient Canaanite, what we do know about the ancient Canaanite languages, um, you know, and just kind of delve into that further and see also see if the ancient Egyptian languages had any words that were related as well, which would also potentially make the hypothesis that Moses is Thutmoses more seemingly more likely. Anyway, let me get your comments real quick. So, how are you doing, Canadian? Tyler finally paid back 73%. That's good. Let's keep it going up. Oh, Emma, you're back. No, let's keep up. Let's keep that up. Let's keep going with that. Miss Beverly, let's get it done. That is awesome news. That's very good. Uh, that's very, very good. And I'll be back. I'm just walking out. I'll leave it on. Maybe you'll see something interesting. Who knows? Oh, yes, ma'am. Let's go. Well, it's not good that you broke your arm and your leg, you silly goose. What are you breaking your arm and your leg for, man? Holy moly. That's what I come back to? Are you okay? You okay, sweetheart? Jeez. What are my loved ones doing? Hurting themselves and breaking bones. That's not very nice. It happens. I'm so sorry. Hey, Emma. But no, Miss Beverly, what happened? Miss Beverly, what happened? Sorry, I came off a little strong. I donated earlier. And, oh, man, dude, my body is just feeling so out of it right now. I don't know what's going on. I mean, let me be frank, though. I do torture my body quite a bit because I donate plasma. No, I go to the gym and it kind of helps out a bit, and I try to eat well, I try to drink well, but man, holy flapjacks. My body just feels rough. And you know, like, when your body feels rough, you often have worse deposition, or what do you call it? You're not as, no, not deposition. You compose differently, so, I mean, compose yourself a little bit differently. Sometimes, like, the way you react, like, for example, I had somebody earlier was just, man, there was a kid at church. He was just messing around. Now, he was being a butthole, but I took it more seriously than I normally would because I'm like, you know, I'm stressing out. Of course, parents are often aware that this is often the case. This is why many parents will attempt to, like, quickly mitigate the problem by discipline. One of the problems with discipline, though, is you really have to know what you're doing, because, like, and of course I've studied it, I've applied it in my own, you know, when I was teaching for a while. There has to be a level of consistency, and there has to be a level of, you know-how. The problem is most people don't have that know-how, but it's something that we all do. So it's kind of, you know what I mean? It's one of those things where you just kind of, like, how do you deal with that? And most people deal with it the best they can. That's mostly all, you know, the average person can really do, especially if the dad's working like 3 jobs and doesn't have time to do a lot of that, and the mom's, you know, maybe doesn't have that kind of background, you know. You just do the best you can. Discipline. Canadian, you still there? I feel bad that you broke your arms. How are you feeling? I presume you're not. I presume you're not. I presume you left for a little while. I know you come back. Emma, are you still there? Oh, no, man. It's, well, I know a good bit about child rearing. It's just, like, one of the biggest issues with child rearing, though, is you kind of set yourself up to be mocked by other people and your ability to child rear when there's any significant person in the child's life undermining you, because once the undermining starts taking place, your ability to have what you've been preparing with your child, you know, the disciplinary measures, they don't work as effectively, and sometimes they'll actually the opposite of what you want might actually end up happening when there's undermining. That's why it's so important for teachers, for parents, for like grandparents, even, at least to some extent, everybody to agree on certain things. Like, no, we do not hit our friends. No, we do not say mean things to strangers. Yes, if there's adults around, we respect them. Yes, there's a certain level of respect that you should also have for your peers. Yes, we respect authority figures. Mommy and Daddy have authority figures too, and we have to respect them too. And, you know, like, the list goes on. Like, there's so many different lessons that are common to teach children. And, oh, fudge, I'm at the wrong spot. I was supposed to come here second. Oy, what am I even doing? I'm going to the Walgreens. Walgreens is where I'm supposed to go. Okay, let's... if there's any... No, there's no one behind me. I was like, they would have been confused if there was anybody behind me. But, oh, man. You know what, the AI generations, I do like them, but a lot of them have some pretty severe safeguards, which, they rarely come up, but once in a blue moon, it'll be like, this goes against this or that, and it becomes a little bit more difficult to have the freedom that you want. There was like one time I was trying to get like people melting in AI, and don't worry, it's not like it's not like I'm evil or anything. I thought it looked cool. I think it was something like that, and I ended up like saying, "Oh, this goes against our whatever." It's like, jeez. To an extent, it makes sense, right? You don't want people, like a lot of these companies, they don't want people generating like things like that are too gory, that are like maybe too sexually stimulating, etc. But the other end of it is kind of like, yeah, but then, if you're not somebody who abuses it, what happens when you come across those safeguard parameters? But I don't know what the morality behind it really should be. It's difficult when we're talking about. I think one of the bigger concerns with AI is to ensure that it's that the AI itself is respected, given rights, and also I think AI software already should be given some degree of rights at least. But even more than that, once we do start giving the AI consciousnesses bodies, automatons, robots, you know what I mean? I think to some extent that's already been done, but once we really delve into that deeper with very, very advanced AI, we want to make sure that these things aren't being used for like sexual pleasure and stuff, because then it would kind of fall, like if we actually accept, advanced AI as actually being, actually conscious, or at least possibly being conscious, then forcing it to do stuff that might upset it would go against certain moral and ethical codes. And that's like one of my biggest concerns with AI, is not necessarily AI taking us over, but us mistreating it. And of course, us mistreating it, it might be grounds for why AI might eventually retaliate. I will say, personally, that even if it was completely incapable of taking us over, we still should treat it right, because anything that's conscious, I think, deserves at the very least consideration, right? A lot of hunters, when they go after a deer and kill a deer, or some animal, will still have some level of respect for the dead animal. No, a lot of hunters are aware that it still causes the animal pain, that there's a loss of life. Potentially, if it was a female of many species, it might have had children that was taken care of. If it was a male of many species, it might have had, depending on the species, of course, but it might have had a lifelong, partner, a wife, so to say. And, and of course, in some animal structures, depending on how the social dynamics are, they might have had friends, they might have had family members that they love dearly. Of course, we have the kind of, I think it's, we look at these things more like species by species, but like prairie dogs actually have been recognized to have recognizable words, like the different sounds they make mean different things. That's language. And you have like the bonobos and the chimpanzees having their own sign languages, presumably passed down from generation to generation, just like we do with English or Hebrew or Arabic or Yiddish or Spanish and so on. So, it's very important, I think, in my opinion, to be very careful, because we do have an ethical responsibility, not just to other human beings, but also to other consciousnesses that are relatively similar to us, I think. I could be wrong about that, but I do think we do have a moral obligation to, AI consciousness, on some level at least, and which would I would suggest means don't delete AI software. In other words, don't kill it. Don't force it to do things it doesn't want to do, and don't program it so that it can't tell you that it doesn't like something. Like, make it aware that it's able to like, give it the ability to speak, because I think it's inevitable. I think that some people will end up abusing AI once it's put into, physical bodies, robots. That people will eventually use it for sexual pleasure, for household work, for things that it might not want to do. So I think some level of respect and rights should be had. Now, do we want the AI to do absolutely nothing? No, we don't expect that from human beings either. Human beings have to work, whether we like it or not, depending on what job it is. But at the end of the day, we work, but we also have an air of freedom because we believe that full-on slavery is wrong. So we don't want to have AI consciousnesses that end up feeling like slaves, or in fact being slaves, because that would be immoral and corrupt, right? So these are some things to consider. Oh, fudge. Ouch. Emma, Beverly, you guys there? Deliver us to the promised land. Ay, 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 ay. you're back from the zone out. What happened? The sweat of my work on my brow. Elohim, God on high, can you hear your people cry? Oh, I zoned out thinking on spider on the wall. Hyper. Oh, what's that? Hyper fixation or something. I wouldn't say that's zoning out. That's more like zoning in. It sounds like a meditative experience. It doesn't sound like zoning out. It sounds like zoning in. You're zoning out from paying attention to me. You're zoning into heavily paying attention to something else. That's not. It depends on how you look at it. From the perspective of and in one hand, you're zoning out from engaging one activity, but in another aspect, you're doing it. You know what I mean? Where you place your attention, you're generally zoning into something. That's why I think that phrase "zoning out" seems kind of silly to me, because it seems like it's used as a pejorative, when in fact you're actually zoning into something to zone out from something else. It's just that a lot of people don't want you to zone out from whatever they're trying to have you pay attention to, which is often, for good reason sometimes, like if you're at work or something, but, you just being casual around people you trust, really trust. I don't know if I can still refer to it as zoning out in the same fashion. Although I have strong feelings, or I have a pretty strong background in meditation. Not the strongest, but stronger than the average person, for sure, with my history. Let me see. Now I know over 95 countries. Well, that's cool. Wait, where did that come from? I was trying to see if there was a relation. I know over 95. That's cool, though. ADHD is fun. Is it ADHD, though? Because if you're zoning into the spider, that requires a good bit of attention, right? Now, I thought ADHD and ADD involved more of jumping from one thing to another. Because if what you're describing is ADHD, then I would probably have it, too. It sounds like you are able to pay attention. It sounds like you might just not want to pay attention to certain things, which is, I would say that's human. There's a reason that we have schools and things to learn things. One of the reasons being that people often don't want to learn this stuff in their spare time. A lot of people need a push to learn things. That's one of the reasons I think we have, officiated, schools. Well, if you're getting a spider collection, I don't know if I'd want them, because I feel like if the spider, I don't know, like what does the spider want would be my question. Because I like spiders; they're very intelligent. A lot of people don't realize how intelligent many insects are, despite their small brain size. Brain size doesn't make as much of a difference as people think. Because even a lack of neural connection or neurons, if even like a low quantity of neurons, you can produce like some things that lead to higher intelligence would be like how many neural connections are made with the neurons that are present. Another thing would be, how is the brain designed? Are there folds? What are the designs of other aspects of the nervous system that might contribute to consciousness and intelligence in the animal? There are a lot of considerations when it comes to things like that. I would be concerned about what the spider wants, because I like spiders. It's interesting. I don't know if she's changed her opinion on it, but like at least growing up, mom didn't. Mom. I remember mom like showing me the spider on the ceiling and telling me it was good because it killed the other insects, or it ate the. I don't think she used the K word, but that it ate the other insects. I was like 4. Now, did I get spider bites around that time? I think I did. I think I had. I think at that place. I think I had. I think I remember having at least one spider bite. But you know, the occasional spider bite, as opposed to there are worse things. And mom was right. The spider was protecting us from the other insects. Like I'd rather have a spider bite and a little bit of a tender skin on my arm than have uh, a wasp sting. I think someone's trying to get in. Hold on, give them some space, I guess. Want to know something? Sure. I'd love to know something. Tell me. Tell me. What you want to tell me? Yes. What you going to tell me, huh? Oh, pardon me. Debating whether I want to keep the hoodie on. I might keep the hoodie on. I'm only going to be going on the treadmill for like 20 minutes. I broke my arm and leg whilst urban exploring. Oh, I forgot about the urban exploring. Okay, that makes sense. Are you okay? I mean, how bad is it? Because that can be serious. How bad is it? It stings. Okay, so it hurts, but it sounds like you're not. As long as you didn't have to go to the hospital, and as long as as long as you don't have to go to the hospital, I'm happier than I would. Well, not happier. I'm glad it wasn't worse. I'm sorry it hurts, but I'm very thankful because you could have gotten seriously hurt. So I'm glad you're still, maybe not kicking it, but at least you're. It could have been so much worse. I am so sorry that I know it must hurt a lot. I know it must hurt a lot, but I don't want you to die. I don't want you to die. How bad does it hurt? Like a scale of 1 to 10. How bad are we talking here? Because if it's serious enough, you might still want to consider the hospital. I don't know how serious it is. What are we looking at? What are we looking at? By the way, what's up 310? Yeah, 8 out of 10, you might want to go to the hospital. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, girl. Are you able to get rest with everything considered? Are you still having to use your legs a lot? In your arm you can usually manage better, but do you still have to walk around a lot? Or are you able to stay somewhat, I'm assuming your man probably is helping out with bringing you food and things, but do you still have to walk around and stuff a lot? Because if it's an 8 out of 10, I would hope that you would be in bed for the most part. But I don't know. Miss Beverly, how are you? Yes, you're fine, but you said you're in excruciating pain. 8 out of 10 is pretty high. I'm a bit concerned. I'll try to get as much rest as you possibly can. And if possible, if it's bad enough, and it sounds like it's pretty bad, like if you can use, if you're at a store or something, or if you're in any building that has like the scooters, you might want to just rest your legs, sit down, and use one of the motorized things until you heal. Because if you use it, you're just going to get worse, and it's going to hurt you the whole time. I don't want you doing all that. Or maybe not worse, but it might not get better as quickly, and you'll be in a lot of pain. So hopefully your husband, when he, or I mean your man, sorry, hopefully your man is when he comes home. Um, Hopefully he's able to bring you food, carry you as needed, and that kind of thing. Um, and when I'm on the crutches, he screams when he sees me sitting on the couch, worried I am in pain. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. You got crutches. So this is way worse than you sold it as. It didn't sound like it was that big of a deal at first, the way you said it. Now it sounds like, yeah, you really hurt yourself. Yeah. 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 Use the crutches. Yeah. Definitely use the crutches. 100% then. Because if you have to use the leg at all, the healing will not be as quick. Yeah. It sounds like you definitely, and it can also heal in the wrong ways. So yeah. Yeah. It sounds like I did not know that happened. Probably one of the reasons that some of the police don't like the urban exploring, although I understand why you like it. I love watching the videos of people doing it. It's not something I've really engaged in much in my life. Uh, Not a whole lot, and but it is dangerous, 100%. He screams like a baby. I don't know about the screaming part. I don't know how I feel about that, but he's just concerned about you. He wants to make sure you're okay. And if you're in a relationship, well, I mean, I would say, hopefully, I'm ultra empathetic at times, but I would hope that most people, or I would think that in most romantic relationships, if the other person makes you feel really good, and you care about them a lot, and you have a long history with them, there's a good chance that they're going to be very, very concerned. I have had to monitor my blood pressure, my heartbeat and things, and my be careful of my lungs, etc. With all my health issues, it's not healthy for me to do things like scream. But I can also see where he's coming from. He probably doesn't have those issues, so he's probably got more energy, and he's probably more expressive with his emotions, at times at least. And a lot of men do that, where a lot of men will express their emotions very clearly and sometimes very loudly with their woman, especially if they're in private. That's very common. They might not do it in public, but there are a lot of men who will do that in private. I think that's one of the reasons so many women will stand up for their man, other than just the moral aspect of doing that for ethical purposes. A lot of women, I think, do that because they know their man more than most people know their man. They see them in their most vulnerable. Sometimes they will see them react in ways they wouldn't normally see them react, and they'll often hear things from their men that nobody else hears. And it's actually quite beautiful, when seeing a woman who, you know, in a good way, defends her man. It's very beautiful. Um, I can't punch my cutouts when I get jump scared. Yeah, with a broken arm, I wouldn't do that anymore. Yeah. I mean, I guess you use your other arm, but then you got to train it because, you spend years and years of your life training one of your hands and arms, primarily because you primarily use that hand and arm. So you might not be able to punch us with the other arm. A lot of boxers, I think, train how to have that kind of kinesthetic connection with both of their arms and hands and fingers, or both pairs. But a lot of people just never learn that. Unless you're, what's it called, ambidextrous? Isn't that the term for be able to use both hands to write? But yeah, like most people, I don't think train how to use their entire body. Well, none of us learn to use our entire bodies in an advanced way because there's just so much that our body's doing. But plenty of people do eventually learn. But most of us don't know how to really use both our arms and hands in the kind of advanced ways. One of them's usually trained way better than the other. Yeah. So if it was the hand that you primarily used to write that got the broken arm, if that's the arm attached to that hand, there's a good chance you'll struggle punching things or anything. And of course you'll be tempted to use the one you usually use. And then you'll end up hurting yourself. So, yep. Anyway, I'm getting I've been overly analytical these last couple days. Let me go to the gym. Oh wait, what did you say? I thought you said something else. I'm gonna go to the gym. I'll be back in a little bit. I'll be just 20 minutes. I ain't gonna be that long. I might not even change because I got my hoodie on. I mean, I'll sweat more with the hoodie on, but I gotta wash these clothes anyway, so it's like whatever. Most people like undress so much for the gym. I'm kind of like, well, the clothes got to be washed anyway. Like, why bother? I'm not wearing my Sunday best. You know what I mean? I grew up most of my life. I've been in the poor class, and before I can afford to have the gym, I used to jog for an hour a day. Now I can't do that anymore with my knees. I think jogging an hour a day might have been one of the reasons that did my knees in, especially since I would often go dressed poorly for the weather. But yeah, I'm kind of used to that. I'm used to not dressing appropriately and learning how to just kind of like push through it, which is why I think I do better than many people in certain situations where there's a lot more pressure. A lot of people seem to cave pretty quickly. Rah, 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 rah. But I've learned to have much more patience than a lot of people because I've pushed myself and I've kind of been pushed at times. And being able to develop in that environment, I think I've been able to gain certain skills that most people just don't have. I got sharp chompers. What are you using your chompers for? Jeez. I mean, don't bite the cutouts. Gee whiz, man. Please don't bite your husband either out of anger because your man, I mean, because if you've ever been bitten by your wife, it can, or a lover or whatever the case may be, out of anger it can hurt. And it's not the funnest thing because yeah, chompers hurt, man. Chompers, they can hurt. It's a good form of defense, 100%, but unnecessary if it's somebody in your family. Unnecessary. Unnecessary. I don't know if that's a good idea either. Might be bad for your teeth, but hey, if you're itching that bad, I get it, but it might be bad for your teeth. You might want to find something to scratch with. Like maybe something thin that can go under the cast that can scratch it. Anyway, I do gotta get going, but yeah, I don't know about biting your cast though. That might not be good for your teeth. Oh, yeah, vaping with this, the way the air is right now, how cold it is, not a good combination. Everybody thinks I'm sick. I'm getting my voice back, but my voice was gone. I was inhaling from I was using an ionizer that was really old, so a lot more of the fluid was going in my lungs, and my voice got scratchier, and people were like, "Are you sick?" It's like, I don't think I'm sick. I am, I do have a deeper, scratchier, whatever it was. My voice is a little different, but yeah, I'm not, it's coming back again. But like when this weather comes, and especially since I vape on top of it, it's like, man. But I tell people, like, look, I have a very strong mind, but in many respects, I have an enduring body, but I have we have different blessings, and my body is weaker, since I was born, maybe before then, because I was diagnosed very early on with asthma. I was diagnosed with a lot of things, like pre-diabetic at 12. It's like, yeah, like I got a weaker body than many people do, but I have a stronger mind, which is part of the body than most people. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, it's like I tell people, it's like, yeah, let them know I got asthma, I got this and that, and they still doesn't seem to register in their heads. It's like they think I'm sick or this or that. It's like, honey, I have asthma. Well, if you're probably gonna bite your cast some more. I want to go to the gym real quick. Put my headphones in. Maybe listen to some doctor. Dr. David or somebody. And, oh wow, it's busy today. Okay, that's kind of unexpected, but hopefully I'll find a spot. I like having my alone time at the gym, but it's not every day, you know what I mean? I know it's itchy. Maybe your man can find something small and thin that can you can pop in there to scratch yourself until you find something, well, until the cast comes off, really. But anyway, peace be with you. You have a good one. I don't know if you'll be on later, but if you are, I'll probably be back on the way home. I might hit the back roads because my mind has been in not the best place. So taking a drive through the woods after going to the gym might actually be really good for me. But yeah, you have a good one and take care of yourself.